Hey, Mike Levin, on my way to public storage Sunday morning, just having dropped Addie off at Hebrew school. Wow, things are progressing. I've gotten to tighten up my act on the professional front. I'm doing some very ambitious push towards data mastering and automation. And the time has come to put the master in data master. Let me tell you, it's not easy to run dozens of complex reports and have all the parts timed right and all the data that has order dependency, a certain sequentiality to it, happen in the right order, taking advantage of concurrency when you can, avoiding it when you don't absolutely need the speed advantage, because when you have order dependencies and this data source has to be hit and has to be joined with this table from this other data source, and those data sources are not always updated promptly, so you have to wait a certain amount past midnight before you actually hit it, because it's not like at midnight data becomes available, so you try and wait till like 5 a.m. so whatever post-processing things that have had to occur have occurred. You generate your reports, hope you waited long enough, and you hope that the people arriving at like 9 a.m. in the morning, sitting down, pulling up their dashboards, have the updated data, that all the timestamps that show when the last data pulls were have been updated. And so you're caught in this very tight window, adjusting it left and right, and trying to make all the automation work. Let me tell you, there's always nuance. APIs is a loaded term application program interface. It's all about the interface, the interactions of things, and the rules by which things interact, and the amount of resources the parties
in a quarter mile, turn right onto Arden Avenue.
Throw behind those interactions. So Google Scale APIs, hitting Google Search Console or Google Analytics. Hopefully now the speed test, now that that's been turned into a site-wide metric amazingly, which will simplify so many things. I'm going to be like going in with a solve.
Turn right onto Arden Avenue, then your destination will be on the right.
And that's how that stuff works. You're always in scrap and rebuild mode. You are never not scrapping something and building something new. That way you're always cycling out the old, cycling in the new. It's like cells in a living organism. So eventually everything other than bone and certain core things have been refreshed with new matter. And it gets to start over. It's like hitting the reset button, getting a good night's sleep, having a good refresh. And so here I am at public storage. I'll see how much longer I can make this. Oh, I have pause. I'm on Android. And I unpause. Wow, it works. So Android lets me shoot less time, although I've cleared out a lot on my Note 8, so hopefully I can shoot for a little while, finish out these thoughts. They're good ones.
Your destination is on the right.
I haven't done one like this in such a long time, and it's time that I did both the professional, personal, why I blend it all in together, why I'm doing it more from the car now than on my walking commutes. And I gotta say, my walking commute has become, well, it's not walking, it's a three-legged commute, train to ferry to train. It has been the #1 negative and positive at the same time of my move to Staten Island. I'm enjoying and loving the view, especially when I walk down from 28th to, say, Union Square, all the beautiful stuff I get to see. And I'm enjoying the view, the light, so I'm like totally addicted to light. And I'm taking my camera and I'm taking shots of like everything, 5 or 6 shots of the same thing, because it's just that amazing to me. And in digging through stuff, like here I am at public storage, I found my dad's #1 old favorite possession, which was his Canon AE1 camera, 35mm single lens reflex, and it's still to this day the digital equivalent of this is the top of the line, so you can see the quality has carried along. He's got an external flash and all this case and strap and supplies for it, but the casing has been bleached away, and I'll probably show this on video at some point, but the camera on the inside is still in like pristine mint condition. And I'm never going to use the thing because, you know, my Note 8 here does better pictures and more and whatever, instantly shareable. We're living in the future, in like truliest Star Trek future as far as our, you know, little tablet electronic devices go. But that makes my dad's, you know, beautifully crafted Canon AE1 more of a symbol and a token and something I'll put up on a shelf with some other stuff that I'm putting together as like actual display case stuff, which again is why I'm at Public Storage. My studio apartment in Irby, Staten Island, has been transformed into a Wonderland science fair, 24/7. It's just no other way to describe it. And, you know, the latest addition was a hand crank Van de Graaff generator. So Addie and I are playing with the sparks last night. And I also got the plasma ball so she can compare these two different kinds of plasmas. I mean, it's plasmas in both cases. One is I think it's high voltage, low wattage, static electricity, and the other is basically the same thing as in a fluorescent neon light bulb, because, you know, there's gas in there, probably one of the noble gases that when you electrify it, you know, plasmaifies. It becomes the fourth, you know, seldom discussed state of matter, although there's probably like a fifth and a sixth. Super liquids, I think, subliquids. Anyway, my place is fun. It's video ready. I did a few walkthroughs. Time allowing, I prepare, do all the prep work, and it's just a great experience every time Addie comes in. And labels and walls, let me tell you, I'm going the same direction in my personal life as I go with, let me turn the car off so I'm not wasting gas. Let's position myself here for optimal loading and unloading of stuff. That would be right here. Turn the car off, save a little fuel, and just finish out the thought, because this is a good one. It's a good one. This is important stuff. This is a transition. It's always about transitions. It's always about interactions. It's almost like there's no static states. What's a static state? You're always a point moving on a timeline, and I guess 2 points moving on a timeline, because there's the now moment actually has a little bit of time inside of it, which is what one of Einstein's, I think, the special case of relativity proved. Anyway, I really don't want to go on to those crazy tangents, but it's all about exposure to the same hints around you about what the world is really like, the much more complex APIs, how much more complex and nuanced and detailed the APIs are than the simple-minded static thinking would make you believe at first pass. One of the main things in life that I'm going to try and teach Addie is that there's always somebody smarter and better and more dedicated than you at that one thing. And if you encounter them and they're intimidating you and using it as a weapon, expand the parameters, turn chess into speed chess. Say, let's put a clock to that. See how you do now. And then you'll have played every one of these games in all its varieties. That's the key thing. Then pick your favorite game, pick your favorite color, pick your favorite foods, pick your favorite music, your favorite tune, you know, pick your favorite setting, place on the planet, pick your favorite modes of interaction, and, you know, interact with people and, you know, do what you love and listen to what you like and eat the foods you love. Through liking, it's love. It's, you know, life, love, like. It's all very related. All these words are same thing as that. What makes the sound of a, you know, barking dog a wolf, right? Same thing happens in our language when words are very similar, even when it's convergent evolution, when words evolved through different routes, but then they came together for similar meanings and stuck. That's part of the evolution. That was a random mutation, and it stuck because it worked. And that's when you would say things like his story and woe man are not negative because, you know, different, you know, linguistic evolutionary paths brought them there, and nobody was thinking in these terms. Well, so what? If it turned out that way, it turned out that way. And, you know, everything around us is a garden. Information and matter are much more tied together than people, you know, give it credit for because of sequencing. Because, you know, what are we but manifestations of our DNA? What is our DNA but arranged amino acids, proteins. And the folding that happens, it's us. And there's all kinds of interdependencies. And without all this other stuff going on, you wouldn't get us. So it has to be part of a system. And people believe that systems are like these one rigid static things, and they're not. Systems, like anything else, are systems layered on systems with subtle interactions, things being related together in unexpected ways. And you wouldn't know it until you look at the outliers in the interactions with interfaces, APIs again. So that's where I'm at. And I am making my decisions regarding the API of Pipulate. If you're interested, just Google Pipulate, you'll find me. I'm deciding whether to bring the Levinux project back to life. It's not really necessary now that Anaconda is here, but it is good for one thing. It's good as sort of a sci-fi gom jabber that you stick your hand in and hold your hand in there, and you do sudo rm/-rf. So you force a recursive delete of your entire system with super user privileges, nuke your system, and go, oh, that's what everyone tells you not to do, or they try and trick you to do. Like in chat, they used to say, hit Control Alt F4, or whatever the keyboard shortcut was for quitting and everything. It's like nerd humor, make you nuke your whole system from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. And I encourage that in Levinux. And you just double click something and it resets and you're back in business, and it has a repo. You can install software, you can do stuff, and you can even get a desktop if you want. I think it's TC, I forget exactly what it is, but Tiny Core Linux and QEMU are Levinux. They combine together, they make Levinux. I don't do the GUI version of Tiny Core Linux because I encourage learning Unix/Linux command lines. If you really want to know what these are about, Google GNU commands. Richard Stallman basically copied a set of commands that were original Unix, those plus the Linux kernel, which is the Frankenstein moment that brings hardware to life, which is what Linus Torvalds made, not the command set. Command set was from Richard Stallman. Kernel and, heart and soul of bringing the hardware to life, a lot of low-level hardware implementation details, Linus Torvalds. Linus Torvalds plus Richard Stallman becomes GNU Linux. Still no graphic desktop, no click and drag, no touch screen or anything. So that's all this other stuff that gets layered in, but that's a whole nother video. Levinux introduces you to old school Unix/Linux a la the GNU command set, very small set, whatever fits in what's called BusyBox, which is like a 500K, not even 1 megabyte version of everything you need command-wise in text-based Linux, in addition to the Linux kernel. So those two together are even smaller than GNU Linux, and that's Tiny Core Linux, or there's all kinds of words people use for these minimal Linux versions, plus just enough Linux kernel to get that particular hardware running and not carrying around all this extra baggage. And you can get it down to, the compressed version is 20 megabytes for Levinux. You download it, you uncompress it, double click it on your desktop, and bam, it's there. So, and then you can install Python, you can install Vim, and you can do a little bit of dev work. If you play around, you can get persistence, use it as a legit dev platform, but it's not meant for that. It's meant for just kicking the tires and moving on to other things. These other things are primarily Anaconda, Jupyter Notebook, Python under Jupyter Notebook under Anaconda. It takes care of all the operating system independence issues that I was developing Linux to do in a different way. And then on the other side is all the text-based, headless, no graphical user interface, no browser, but it's running on some generic Linux cloud server out there, or maybe a Raspberry Pi, hardware under your control, doesn't matter. Just has to be enough to run generic Linux, and a version that has systemd for scheduling and task respawning, because I'm using that instead of cron, because cron's a scheduler. I want a operating system level task responder, checking that something's always running. If it's not, run it again. That's the trick to get everything running, because as soon as you have a task respawner, you can hand control of scheduling over to Python using the schedule third-party module. I looked at Sched that was built into the core and decided not to use that. I like the options in the API. Again, it's about the API. I use requests from I read he's like one of the only Twitters I actually follow, but the guy who made Kenneth Wrights, he's an API master. If you want to know about API nuances, look at the requests object under Python. For similar reasons, I chose the schedule third-party library to handle scheduling. So Linux, the versions I use have systemd. Systemd is a task responder and scheduler, but I use it as an @boot task loader, and from that point on, task responder if it quits out. I run a filename.py, arbitrary filename.py, from systemd, which is the replacement for cron under a lot of modern Linuxes. They keep cron there, but for people who want to do daemon is another word. It's, it's little agents that run around Linux. It's your scheduler stuff. It's your system services. If you want to do system services type work, you learn systemd. Systemd lets you turn a python.py into a system service, and that's data mastering instead of a web server. Web servers are poof, what do you need? Poof, what do you need? Poof, what do you need? Like a genie. And I never really liked it. And you had to run Apache, then got it down to Nginx. It's now built into Python and can be very minimal. But a poof, what do you need? Server, you have a server. Serve me. Go out and do things when I want you to do them. That's nothing more than python.py or language of your choice whatever, with it automatically restarted from systemd. Knowing that you got to handle everything else, there's a lot of responsibility in your hands for local caches and things not running twice at the same time. The OS can give you a little bit of help there. And if any stuff is order dependent, you have real scheduling nuances, like whether you do enforced sequential, no matter how long things take, gets stretched out, in which case you enforce the sequentiality. But if you hit a 24-day boundary, you got a issue, and that's what's happening to me right now. And I'm cutting out this whole chunk of stuff, what I said with a sawzall. Re-implementing under the new Pipulate has a better API. You can take a rectangle here, bring it into pandas, do manipulations, take that resulting thing and push it back out to the same size rectangle over here in Google Docs, and bam, you got dashboards. And that's pretty much Pipulate, and that's pretty much my life right now, and I'm going to be talking about it a lot. I know I haven't, because transitions, and here I am at public storage. That will make for a nice transition. So anyway, thanks for joining me. If I can struggle, I'll date mark this in my voice. I like to do that just for when I run the machine learning in here in the future. It is about 10 a.m. Sunday, April 8th, 2018. Thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you again soon, and don't forget to subscribe. See you at VidCon.